Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and I hadn't covered any Magic news in a while, and that's because there really hadn't been any of note, at least not any in my opinion, but then I found this, and I think this qualifies, unlike me at an RCQ. Wizards' latest change may be the end of multiple MTG formats. Alright, so I've gone through this article already, mainly because, as a Magic fan, I was reading through, didn't realize I was going to cover it, but I realized this is worth noting, and it's because, well, it changed to multiple formats. I think the title is a bit misleading. There is not going to be a change to multiple MTG formats. However, there is, in my opinion, a net negative change coming to the Pro Tour, to the RCQs, and I want to go over it, and if you're interested in Magic the Gathering or how the tournament scene works, you might find this interesting as well. So let's take a look. Competitive MTG players are discussing the impact of a recent change to future seasons of tournament play. Wizards of the Coast revived their Pro Tour circuit with a few changes to support MTG's traditional play. These changes involve the Regional Championship Qualifier system, which grants an accessible starting point for players wanting to engage in competitive paper Magic. The latest change to the system could threaten to end some MTG formats as we know them. Now again, it's not going to end the formats as they know them, not at all, but it is a massive change that I think is a net negative, and I want to point out right here, it says, grants an accessible starting point for players wanting to engage in competitive paper Magic. That's what it has done. The recent incarnation, the modern incarnation, modern, get it? Anyway, the modern incarnation of the tournament system is very accessible, and that's kind of the problem we get into. Let's read through this. Thanks to your feedback, the upcoming RCQ seasons will have a single seasonal format, plus limited, to lower the player barrier to entry. More details to come during February 7th weekly MTG. Now, the lower barrier of entry. That's not good, at least not in my opinion. I get the idea of wanting to lower the barrier of entry, make it all-inclusive, all welcoming, whatnot, but this is literal for potential pro play. The NFL doesn't have a low barrier to entry. You gotta be the best of the best. Soccer, any professional sport, not even sports, esports. You're not going to get to just go compete in League of Legends at EVO if you're a schlub. It takes years of practice, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes going to a bunch of other tournaments, honing your skills. So I think lowering the barrier of entry is an absolute net negative for the Pro Tour, for the qualifier as a whole, and I think this is going to be an absolute mistake when it comes to Wizards of the Coast. Are there going to be a lot of players who aren't exactly that great that want to play? Yeah, me. I've gotten to some qualifying tournaments. I love Magic. I'm absolutely not the best at Magic, but I love playing it. And every loss I take gives me something to go home and learn with and figure out and try new things. I'm not a net decker. I don't look, oh, hey, what's the greatest meta going on in the tournament scene right now? No. I like going in all original and going just off my skill and seeing what I can do. And I take a lot away from it. I learn from it. And I think that's how people should play Magic. There's integrity there. There's honor there. But if you just start lowering the barrier of entry to where anyone can come in and play and qualify, it gives not only them an inflated sense of confidence that they might not actually be deserving of because they're not that good, but it also just destroys the integrity of what is considered, professional, or what is considered the best of the best. For competitive hopefuls who want to engrave their name in the competitive MTG history, the regional qualifier system is the best way to do so. Just show up to your local game store and play some games of Magic. Through honing your skills, you can even become your local expert and compete at the next level. Wizards of the Coast's recent announcement was done in a way to make things more accessible to everyone, which again, I've already explained, I'm very against. And before anyone says anything, no, this isn't a gatekeeping thing. It's like, I don't want low-level plebs playing Magic with me. I'm not that great at Magic. I'm not. But I'm not going to get better if I'm playing other worse people who aren't very good, who are trying to get into it. The people who are already the best are going to get bored because they're playing with low-level individuals that shouldn't be here. Like, the idea that making it more accessible, it doesn't help anyone. It needs to have a high barrier of entry so that everyone has something to achieve, something to strive towards, something to want to attain. It doesn't benefit anyone, save for the lowest of the low, to have a low barrier of entry, and then when the lowest of the low walk through that door, okay, now they didn't have to put in any work. They're not going to respect it. So this is not gatekeeping for gatekeeping's sake. There are times when gatekeeping is a net positive, and I think this is one. For anything competitive, where that's got a high level of skill, where there's a skill ceiling that you can break and break and break, it should be gate kept so that people have something to strive for, which is that gate. In the past, stores would run their regional championship qualifiers on the most popular MTG format in the area. This generally meant that the format being played at the regional championship event players are fighting to qualify would be different from the format actually being played at the qualifier. with this current season, for example, the championship being qualified for is a Pioneer event. Yeah, last season that was the case. I went to go to compete in the qualifier at a massive tournament in Atlanta, Georgia, and got in a car wreck on the way there and was not able to make it to that event. But let's say I made that event and I placed high enough to actually get to go to the championship. The event would have been in Modern format, not Pioneer format. So I would have had to build an entire new deck that fits Modern standards. But I think that's fine. That's good, since there are multiple formats of Magic. To be an expert, to be the best of the best, you need to have a firm understanding of all of those different types of formats. If you're just good at one format but not the other, if you're just a Standard player, if you're just a Pioneer player, if you're just a Commander player, if you've only got one specialty, you might be dog shit at the game in other facets and other formats, and then that means, sorry, you're not an expert. You're not one of the best of the best. So, I don't know, that's a good thing. And once again, it gives you something to strive towards. I'm a Pioneer player. I love Pioneer. I'm a Commander player. I love Commander. Modern, I'm not exactly the greatest at. So had I qualified in the Pioneer tournament and gone on to, I had to spend the next, 3-4 months, however long in between the tournaments it was, studying and testing and figuring out how to do, and it would have been good. It would have been a learning experience. It would have been a fantastic way to get invested in the new form and learn and improve. And there would have been a time limit to do so, which would have only driven me to do so with the intensity of an anime pro tag, Goku or Naruto style. Like, the idea that now all Magic formats, like, okay, this season is a Pioneer season, it's going to be Pioneer all year long, it sounds great on paper, but it actually takes away a lot of the skill for high-level competition and the time in between the actual games, the time spent testing, the time spent building, when you only have to focus on one format as opposed to learning a bunch. It makes it easier, lowers the barrier of entry, which I get some people will think is good. I do not. I wonder how it's lowering barrier to entry. In my honest opinion, it's a big mistake. LGS, local tournament organizers, know best which format their players will play. More next week, but in short, players tend to only play in a single format for each season, even if they wanted to play in more events, because multiple formats were too much to keep up with. Now, multiple formats are not necessarily too much to keep up with. It depends on the format. Something like Standard, which rotates frequently, and so you have to keep buying new cards, that's difficult to keep up with, but that's a Wizards of the Coast problem because they keep putting out more and more cards and making things more and more expensive. But something like Pioneer or Modern that has backdated sets, or something like Pauper, which is all commons, non-commons, is not a lot to keep up with. I think they're trying to cover themselves here and look like the good guys. Wizards is trying to tell themselves, oh, we understand our players are having trouble keeping up with everything, so we're going to broaden our tournament play. No, we're having trouble keeping up with everything because of your crappy management and how you're treating releases and how you're squishing them close together and how much you're raising the prices and giving us less value. The reason people are having trouble keeping up is because of poor management through means of distribution, not through the tournament levels of play. That's a very important note that I want everyone to take from this. The tournament play didn't need changed. Wizards' top-down organization of how they handled sets being released and cost of cards is what needed changed. This is a band-aid where there's not even a scrape or bruise. According to the PlayMTG Twitter account that posted this upcoming change, the bigger reason this change is occurring is that players had difficulty keeping up with multiple formats in one qualifying season. Chances are, whatever format is prevalent in your area is the format that a majority of qualifiers would feature. But again, this is not true. Almost everyone consistently played Modern. Modern was the format. It's still the format. Yeah, Pioneer's there, and it's great. I love Pioneer. It's fun. But Pioneer does not have near the following. It doesn't have Pioneer the following that Modern did. Same with Standard. Standard was the GOAT many, many years ago. Modern is just a twinkle in the rearview mirror of the truck being driven by Wizards of the Coast that is ready to just isekai us and send us to another dimension. Probably Ravnica or something. Who knows? So I don't like this yarn they're spinning that there was too many formats to keep up with. You had Pioneer, you had Modern, you had Pauper. And that was pretty much it. 3 formats is not a lot to keep up with. I mean, yeah, you've got Standard as well, but no one really does anything with Standard. It's not a lot to keep up with. It's just a matter of trying to save face and look like they're doing something good for the community. Isn't that right, Hondo? Are you tired of the way Wizards of the Coast is acting? You think things go good. You think things are saved with all the Dungeons and Dragons drama, and then they just pull you right back in with this negative Magic stuff. There's no winning, I tell you. No winning. If that happens to be a different format than the tournament you qualified for, which was a very common occurrence, then players need to learn multiple formats to keep up. But again, Players knew these formats. If you're playing Magic competitively, you're already very intelligent and you have well-versed in Magic. I didn't play Pauper, but I know what Pauper was. If I qualified for a Pauper tournament, I would know the type of deck I need to make. I might need to do some research and make sure all my ducks are in a row and really brush up and bone up and become an expert on it, but I know the concept of Pauper. I know the concepts of Modern. I might have to figure out, okay, what cards are banned. Okay, and then you build a deck around that. It's not difficult because once you're proficient in one format, it's a very easy avenue to become proficient in other formats. The change to one format per season should, according to PlayMTG, allow the barrier to entry for new players interested in competing be a lot lower. Anyone who wants to compete only needs to learn one format per season. I tend to play literally every format and quite effectively with T8 results on the regular too. Top 8 results for those that don't know. Please don't change. Limiting options or choices is not optimal. I like being able to choose Modern and Pioneer in the same weekend. You know what? I do as well. I mean, again, I don't really play Modern, but I would be getting into Modern had I done well at that Pioneer tournament. I'm still thinking of getting into Modern just because it is the end-all be-all when it comes to the competitive Magic scene in most Magic players' eyes. I would argue they will increase barrier to entry for those invested solely in Modern and those invested only in Pioneer, and everybody if the format is standard. Yeah, anyone that's, only focusing on one format, that's absolutely, the barrier to entry is now raised because those people are either not going to be competing in the other tournaments, oh, hey, well, this season's a Modern season. The Pioneer players are either going to have to say, all right, well, now it's time to learn Modern, or I'm not going to compete. And I don't really have an issue with that. Again, a higher, barrier of entry, in my opinion, is a good thing because we're talking about competitive play. You're earning trophies. You're earning money. You're earning bragging rights. You're wanting to be looked at as the best of the best. So I don't have an issue with high barrier of entry, but I get what this individual is saying. This person, as a tournament organizer, I don't like this change. I'm willing to see how it plays out in reality, but I fear removing the option to run RCQs using our locals' favorite format, Modern, will really hurt the momentum we've been building. And you know what? That's another fantastic point. Like I said earlier, tournament organizers would organize these qualifying tournaments in whatever's the most prominent in your area. If you've got a large play group, you're an LGS and everyone plays Modern, and you're like, well, hey guys, this season it's Pioneer. Let's say you've got 30 dudes that normally come to Friday Night Magic. Now maybe only 22 are going to come. Or maybe only 17 are going to come. Or maybe only 5 are going to come because people are like, nah, not doing Pioneer. All of a sudden, now you're hurting that local business, that tournament organizer that's trying to put on these tournaments, because the people that used to come for the tournaments, they're not coming now because it's in a format that they don't care about. It's baffling to me that they mentioned earlier in the article that the qualifications were for whatever is most common in that area. Look, where I live, there are Modern and Pioneer tournaments all the time. Modern tournaments are leaps and bounds bigger. The Pioneer ones, very, very small, but they are there. But if they quit the Pioneer tournaments, not a lot of people would care. If they quit the Modern tournaments, a whole lot of people would care, and I truly don't see Pioneer picking up anymore. I don't see the Modern players being like, well, guess I gotta learn Pioneer now, and then start to come to the Pioneer tournaments. No, they'll just start going to different stores that still offer Modern tournaments instead of sticking with the LGS that they were known for going to. Even though this was announced rather recently as of writing this article, PlayMTG's upcoming changes have many MTG players concerned about the health of their competitive community. Communities tend to skew towards specific formats, and while unifying the competitive circuit to focus on one format does make the barrier to entry for newer players be more palatable, it could also damage the turnout of local players at these competitive events. Exactly. This is actually terrible for LGSs, as Modern is the most predominant format and hosts the highest number of players. You're actually killing LGS attendance for these events, but that's par for the course with Wizards of the Coast these days. That is entirely true and accurate, yes. Wizards of the Coast does not care about their local communities. They haven't cared about their D&D community until we literally bullied them into saying, we're done, we're not giving you money. We had to cost them thousands of dollars for them to finally at least pretend to care. The Magic community hasn't done that yet, and while I know there's a lot of crossover, I'm part of that crossover, the Magic community hasn't done that yet. So Wizards doesn't care. They're worried about the back end. They're worried about the profits that's coming to Wizards. They don't care about the local distributors because they've got Amazon. They've got direct shipping from the website. Why do they need local stores at this point? Well, for things like this, for your tournaments, for your player base, for your fans. What you doing, Wizards? I mean, you almost did good with D&D. You almost did good. Technically you did do good, but I don't trust you. But not in the same week you're screwing over Magic. Like, what in the world? Is this more easily accessible? Hot take, this is a good change. RCQ format should be in line with the RC format. No reason to play Modern 80% of the RCQs for a standard RC. Okay, here I absolutely disagree. I think there is a reason to play Modern for 80% of the RCQs than for a standard RC, because these are regional qualifiers, and then literally the regional tournaments, the regional championship. If you want to be the best of the best, you should probably be the best at the game as a whole, not just in one particular format. I mean, you don't sit there and be like, oh, Michael Jordan is the best dribbler. Michael Jordan's the best scorer. Michael Jordan's the best. No, you say Michael Jordan's the best. He's the GOAT. He can do everything. That's what makes Michael Jordan Michael freaking Jordan. And I'm sorry I keep using all these sports ball references, since some of you guys listening, most of you guys listening, probably aren't exactly ballers. I'm not either. But we all at least know Michael Jordan is the GOAT. Once you got, shoes, once you got Nikes that are literally named after you, and you balled with Bugs Bunny, you're probably the GOAT, and everyone knows your name at this point. That has got to be the case, at least in my opinion, for literal Magic Championship players. If you need to win 80% of modern tournaments to get to a standard tournament, I hope you're good at both, because that proves you're the best. Big fan of this. Right now, RCQ formats are a bit slanted in my area. 60 to 70% modern, 20 to 30% pioneer, 0 standard, maybe 1 sealed. I love to have more predictable churns through these, like the old PTQ days. But here's the thing. They are slanted because that's what people want to play. People want to play modern. This is up to the market. People don't want to play pioneer. They might not want to play standard. The reason modern has the slant is because that's what folks want. If you start taking it away, folks just won't come. I've already said that. They just won't come. While there is a camp of players worried that this could ruin the RCQ turnouts in their area, another subject of players are really happy about the change, as, instead of learning multiple formats at the same time to keep up, competitive hopefuls can now afford to turn all their attention towards one MTG format. Great change. It was a little absurd to ask players who wanted to play as much RCQs as possible in a given season to constantly switch decks unless they already had an extensive collection. As long as the RC matches the qualifier format, A+. Most Magic players do have these sorts of decks, though. I had 3 Pioneer decks, several Commander decks, was in the process of building a Modern deck. Technically, Pioneer decks are also Modern decks, they just won't be very optimized, minus a few banned things that probably aren't going to come into play now and again. And to be fair, Doomwake, he's great. I'm subscribed to his YouTube channel. He's very knowledgeable. He played in the the RCQ that I was going to. I think he may have played in the actual championship that I was going to. I heavily disagree with him there, though. This is good. While letting each store do what their players want had upsides, competitive Magic felt way too incongruent. Having each season be one format allows competitive players to follow content, share information, test, learn, and compete. But we had all of that before, because all of these formats were being played at the same time with a very obvious lean towards modern. But we had all of this before. This doesn't change that. Learning multiple formats can make a local tournament circuit much more challenging to keep up with. While you may need to learn modern for a local tournament one weekend, next weekend's available tournament may be Pioneer. This may require buying, building, and learning 2 different decks for players who want the best chance at winning a regional qualifier. But that's literally the point. If you were a Magic player, if you were a competitive Magic player, you probably already have an extensive collection. You probably already have the stuff to build this. And if you are a wannabe competitive Magic player and you don't have this, this is incentive to get to that level. That's why the barrier of entry needs to be higher. No schlub should be able to come in just with the handful of cards they have and you play in whatever format. You need to work for it. Making the I keep harping on the same subject. I'm probably not changing, getting anyone's mind changed, but if I am, hopefully you understand my point of view. This change is great in the sense that it unifies the multiple format issue across qualifier events, allowing a player to invest in just one deck at minimum to stay relevant across qualifier tournaments for the entire season. The skills you hone through your qualifier experiences can also be used at the tournament you're qualified for. Sad day for Modern fans. I felt great joy knowing players could follow the competitive Magic path using my Modern content. I feel that Modern fans like me and much of my audience are being shut out of competitive Magic this way. I have mixed feelings about this. Focusing on one format seems easier for less invested he probably means players. Yes, exactly. On the other hand, I'm worried that Modern, the most popular competitive format, will be disenfranchised by this change, thus harm the game. Will there ever be a Modern season? While some are excited about the upcoming narrative between qualifiers and regional championships, other MTG players are worried that all the other 2-player formats will be thrown to the wayside for the duration of the competitive season. MTG personality Andrea Mengucci, for example, primarily spends his time making content themed around the format Modern. Seeing the competitive viability of this fan-favorite format fade, say that 5 times fast, fan-favorite format fade, fan-favorite format fade, fan-favorite format fade, can mark the end of that format. Alright, so here, Play MTG responds, definitely not the intent. In fact, the season after Pioneer will be Modern. Fortunately for many die-hard Modern fans out there, Witches of the Coast has reassured us that killing Modern was not part of the agenda. There will be a regional championship season coming up that is entirely dedicated to Modern. Considering that the upcoming Tales of Middle-earth set is direct to Modern set, this makes a lot of sense. See, and here we have it. They've probably made this change so that tournament players absolutely have to buy, this set, therefore making them tons of money, because there's already been a lot of backlash around this set. There's been a lot of backlash around a lot of Modern Magic stuff. So I bet this is a skeevy business practice from the inside, masquerading as something to help new fans, lower the barrier of entry for those who aren't quite as competitive yet. I bet there's the real reasoning. This change may, however, take some interest from Modern and redistribute it to other formats. This effect will have an RCQ turnout has yet to be determined. No one knows how it will end. Can't wait to find out if this helps local competitive Magic in my area or completely eliminates it. Great change. Terrible, terrible decision. As the comical response to Play MTG's statement above highlights, the MTG community doesn't have a set opinion on how this will end. While some players heavily invested in specific MTG formats may not have a lot of tournaments to play every season, players driven to perform competitively will have a much easier time staying relevant between qualifier weekends, since all the formats will become much more unified. As stated, the biggest worry against unifying tournaments is the potential to damage off-season MTG formats and the risk of lower turnout to the majority of competitive events as a response to, potentially, ignoring the most played tournaments in each community. Whatever ends up happening as a result of these changes will be difficult to predict, but the health of some MTG formats and local store scenes may hang in the balance. For those interested in pursuing Magic further, Play MTG has stated that more details are to be announced on February 7th. Well, if those are details of any note, I will of course do a follow-up video to this one, but as it currently stands, I think this is a net negative change. It does not make any sense unless they're doing it, again, for some skeevy back-end financial purposes to start making certain products be more widely sought after, more widely purchased, because, like I said before, Hasbro's stock dropped 44% last quarter, and that was almost all due to mismanagement and mishandling of Magic. The D&D stuff didn't happen until this year. Previous year, the last quarter, all their stock issues were purely because of their handling of Magic the Gathering. This, to me, screams damage control and faking left, going right, for a position for an issue that doesn't actually exist. But if they can make us fans think a particular issue exists, we'll start focusing on that, and it will maybe draw our attention away from the skeevier business practices that they have been doing that they're not going to let up on, that they said they're not going to let up on. And I do not agree with this. The pressure needs to stay on for Magic and for Wizards of the Coast and for Hasbro to absolutely overhaul the management side of things, the release schedule, the pricing, before we touch a tournament system that was already working fine, that everyone loved. But that's just my opinion. You might have a different one. If so, let me know in the comments below, or let me know on Twitter, where you can follow me at BoltTheWord. And please, if you're interested in Magic the Gathering content or Wizards of the Coast content as a whole, I have a playlist I'll link here for it, and other nerdy things such as anime, Star Wars movies, you name it, it's all here in the nerdosphere. But until next time, please subscribe, because this has been Words of Paradise.